Greetings from the people of planet Earth.
Hi, this is Mark Taylor-Canfield, contributing editor for Democracy Watch News. Today's podcast is about 4K versus 1080p. What camera should you use if you want to be a journalist? So we included some discussion between myself, Dean Edwards, the coordinating editor, and Sally Gellett, our moderator for this press briefing, which was recorded on December 7th, 2017. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield for Democracy Watch News for the Democracycast.
If you shoot in 4K, you can see every tiny little particle of dust on everything. It drives you crazy. I've seen 4K videos of reviews of cameras, and somebody brings out a brand new camera and they put it down on the counter and they show you what it looks like, and you can see every tiny little particle of dust. You'd literally have to take an air blower to it or something to get rid of any of the specks. It's crazy. It's way overblown. And so when it comes to makeup, oh my God, producers don't know what to do, because suddenly every crag and pimple and pore in your face looks like a moon crater. And so the new style of Hollywood movie is going to be really craggy-faced looking people, because you can't avoid it. You can put on lots and lots of makeup, but sooner or later, I mean, you're going to see those imperfections. Everybody has an opinion, and most of them are really strong opinions, and they're based upon some kind of personal issue that you may not even understand. But some people are in love with Macs and they'll never touch a PC, and they think that anybody who does is a complete idiot. There are people who believe that Canon cameras with the 23mm large sensors are the best way to shoot photographs or video, and they just don't believe in anything else, even though the problem is that Canon doesn't want to offer in any of its what they call prosumer market 4K video yet. Even though this year everybody bought 4K TVs and it was the big deal. They're not super cheap, They're in the $300-400 range for the cheapest ones. But everybody is pushing 4K now, where a couple years ago it was like they were $5,000 and only very wealthy people, and like Bill Gates had them or whatever. Now the broadcast networks are discussing whether to go 4K or not. Some of them are thinking that they just want to stay with 1080p. Because they would have to rework their whole network, technically, in order to go 4K. And it's still, depending on who you talk to, may not be the industry standard. Now John told us that it is the industry standard, that there's no reason not to shoot in 4K. He also told us that he has 18 terabyte hard drives. So that means there's a huge stack of hard drives at his place, and he's constantly buying new ones at about $60-70 a pop. And so there's that issue. There's also the issue that I went to Glazer's Camera, which is the professional camera store here in Seattle that all the professional photographers go to. They have all the highest high-end equipment, like $50,000 cameras and stuff.
Yeah, we used to go to the one in Palo Alto. I'm well familiar with those kind of stores.
Yeah, so I walk in and I say, "Hey, I would like to shoot in 4K. Can you show me some cameras?" And they just kind of looked at me dumbfounded, like, why would you want to shoot in 4K? Like, who do you believe? Everybody has a different story. They're telling me, oh, it's not the industry standard. We're professional photographers, and none of us use 4K. And anybody who does use 4K has to step it down to at least 2K and usually 1080 to use it anywhere, because if you post anything on YouTube, unless you have a premium account, you're going to see it in 1080p. Then we got in the whole discussion of, can you even tell the difference between a 4K file video and a 1080p file on a large screen TV? You obviously can't really tell in terms of resolution on a smartphone, okay? The screen is just too small. There's no way that resolution is going to be represented on that tiny of a screen. In fact, you can use videos of very low resolution on your smartphone, and they look great because it's such a small screen. So you don't have to even shoot at 1080p. You can shoot probably at 720 or even 640 and look fine on YouTube. Have really low resolution, you're still fine. But once you get up to the 50-inch TV screen, which is what some people use, and that's what John says he has, then you're talking a different story. But I still maintain, after going to several electronic stores and standing right next to 1080p screens and 4K screens, that it's very, very difficult to tell the difference. And it has less to do with the resolution and more to do with what they call the refresh rate, which means that the screen is flashing when you're watching it. That's what creates, this illusion of motion, right? And so the faster it's flashing, the faster it refreshes, then the smoother movement is going to look on the screen. So I did notice that on a 1080 screen, shooting 1080 video, there's a tiny bit of almost like stutter in movement on a big screen, like a 50-inch screen. And not that, I'm still struggling with this idea too. Now, John says he watches YouTube on a 50-inch screen. And I'm just thinking that most of the millennials I know and folks in that generation are not probably watching the stuff that I do on a 50-inch screen. They're probably, walking down the street or at a party or in a bar.
Barely watching.
I'm just saying it's like, so it comes down to this. Who is your audience? That's really probably the defining factor in all this. Who is your audience? Because if your audience is people...
Look at Twitter.
Yep.
I think that there's a bit of a battle going on between whether or not people are even going to be watching TV anymore. Personally, I think they are going to be. By the way, don't worry about USB because nobody's going to use USB. I was told this as a guaranteed fact.
So there was USB 2.0, which was your typical flash drives. Now there's USB 3.0, which they tend to be faster. But it just depends on what you're doing too. Because I use a lot of super mini SDs now. The ones that are the size of a chip that goes into your phone. I use those in my cameras because you just need an adapter in order to put them in your computer, like like an external hard drive. So I actually have been doing a lot of production off of mini SD cards and using them as external flash drives instead of USB flash drives. They're smaller, so you have to be careful because if you drop them somewhere, they might, go down behind the cushions in your couch and you won't find them for 6 months. But as long as you can keep track of them, I'm still in a quandary. I have been trying for about 3 weeks now to purchase a new camera, and every time I get close to buying it, then somebody else comes along, or I do some research and I find out something else that makes me think different. So the point is that there are two ways to go right now, and I think that we're turning a corner probably from 1080p to 4K. We haven't really turned it yet, but we're trying. And because we're in that transition period, about 50% of the people will tell you that it's crazy, and about 50% of the people will tell you that you have to do it or you're stupid. So it's up to you. I think either way, you're going to be fine for a while, right? I could buy... Here's the thing that people don't know and that I've been able to purchase that. Okay, if you go into Glazer's camera and you tell them that if they think you're a professional filmmaker and you say you want to shoot in 4K, they're going to show you probably a $10,000 camera. Maybe the cheapest one they'll show you is about $5,000. But on the point and shoot rack, there are two cameras that you can get sometimes on sale or refurbished or whatever for around $300 that shoot in 4K. So don't let them fool you, because they don't want you to know that there are these prosumer models out there that shoot fine 4K resolution, and you don't need to spend $5,000, $10,000, $50,000. I do sell photos every once in a while as a journalist, but I just want a way to shoot videos. And if you're shooting video for YouTube, then there's absolutely no reason to have a 4K camera, even if it is only $400, because it's going to take so much time to download and upload everything you do in 4K. You're going to need so much more memory for your computer, at least one extra hard drive, probably a couple. And I just don't know why you would want to do it unless you're trying to be the coolest person on the web. Like the person who stands in line to get the new iPhone 10, you know, and sleeps in a tent overnight. That kind of person. Then I can see you doing it. But other than that, if you're just trying to share information with people, nobody is going to care. And here's the main thing I learned came from Ron Howard. He says, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on the cameras and how expensive, you know, your crew is and how many crew and what your production, you know, budget is. It's what you capture in that frame that matters. And if you can tell a good story that engages people, that's what's important. And people are not going to give a damn whether it's in 1080p or 4K. If you shoot in 4K.
And in terms of the other aspect that he was talking about, Imogen famously said once, "It's not the camera, it's the photographer." And she demonstrated that by just grabbing any point and shoot that was available. And she was brilliant.
Yeah, and some professional photographers really appreciate point and shoots because some of them have really large sensors and really good images, especially like the Nikons or even the Panasonics actually are some of the best these days. For some reason, somehow Panasonic went from this company that made cheap, you know, stereos to like the top-notch, you know, cameras. But some of the point and shoots, the automatic focusing, you know, I mean, literally it focuses in on like 49 different points in the photograph. In the Panasonics, you can even change the focus of the photograph after you've taken it. That's where we're at. The cameras are computers now.
Wow.
It's like you have Photoshop on your camera. And so with a point and shoot, if you're trying to shoot something that's happening really fast, like maybe there's a riot or something or a sporting event, you don't have time to refocus your camera every quarter second. You know what I mean? When things are moving. Even the best photographers have a really hard time with manual focusing when things are happening that fast, so they miss their shots. If you have a really nice point and shoot, and maybe in some of them, like the Panasonic FZ80 has like a 60 times zoom, so it's huge. If you have a camera like that, then you can let it do the work for you, and it'll automatically adjust. Now, it does take, you know, a microsecond or whatever to adjust, and it does depend on what camera you buy. Unfortunately, the Canons are not known for really quick refocus, although the newer ones kind of do. But to me, it's coming down to, do I buy a Canon DSLR, digital single lens reflex camera like a Rebel series, like a T5i or T6i or something, and spend, right now, Canon is selling them for under $300 because they have some refurbished models. I don't know how long that's going to last because they keep going out of stock. I could do that. I could have a really nice Canon with some really great lenses and get with a big sensor and get kind of cinema quality look to what I'm filming. Or I could spend a little bit more, not much more, and get a 4K camera from Nikon, or is the British thing Nikon or Panasonic, and then shoot in 4K, which would have much better resolution, but according to what I've been able to figure out, not as good image qualities. So there you go. It's really nice image quality on a big sensor with a 1080p camera, or much better resolution with not as much color saturation and not as cinematographic a kind of look with a 4K camera. And I think I'm going to go probably for the Canon, because I can always upgrade to a 4K camera later, and if they're only $500 right now, think about what they're going to be in a year, right? When there's even more models to choose from and there's more point and shoot 4K cameras and it becomes kind of the norm, I'll probably be able to pick them up for even cheaper. But the Canon...
I also think, going back to Stranger in a Strange Land, that I think that Heinlein was a visionary there, and we are going to see three-dimensional, wall-size monitors that people will be using to watch programming. So I don't think. I think while it's great to have all this stuff be portable, sometimes I have it on my device and I stream it over to the 40-inch screen we have.
Well, I could see
From
like
there.
maybe
So-
holographic screens, like in Fahrenheit 451, where like they send you the script and then you become one of the actors in the TV show or whatever. But I don't know about if personally, I'm overwhelmed by a 50-inch screen as it is. It kind of is annoying. It's so big and the images are so large that you can't escape it. It just kind of invades the whole room. Much at a certain point. Plus, you have to sit back from the screen. So, like, yeah, if you have a small apartment, then it's hard to get far enough away from the screen to actually see it at the correct definition. And I've seen the TV sets when they first came out were inordinately expensive and dangerous. People.
Then they went to projection TVs. Remember projection TVs?
Oh, sure.
Yes, well, that's what I was going to say. If you want a large screen, get a projector. That's my answer to that. I'll tell you where I think there's really, for me, only one reason to worry about definition on my screens above, say, 720p or 1080p, and that's what am I editing. Now, if I'm going to edit 1080p video, then I need to have a 1080p screen, which I do have. If I'm going to go 4K, then I guess I'm going to have to buy a 4K screen, right? Because what would be the sense of editing in a resolution that you can't even see yourself on your own screen? So that's the only reason. I think it's going to save me a whole heck of a lot of money to stay out of 4K right now. And if I bought a 4K camera right now, I probably would be using 1080p for my YouTube channel anyway, so it would be kind of wasted until maybe it's time to do the Nick Savage Private Eye short film or whatever. But I don't know. I think 1080p, I have a soft spot for Canon cameras because they have very large sensors. And if you look at YouTube channels where the host of the channel uses a Canon T3 all the way up to T7 or T8 or whatever they have now, but starting like probably four years ago, they look great. It's just, and it's not the resolution. It's not because they're in 4K. They're in 1080, but they're being shot on a Canon camera, and according to what some photography experts will tell you, it's all about two things. It's all about the lenses and it's all about the sensor. So if I want the cinematographic kind of quality that makes it look like a movie, then I think I'm going to have to go with Canon. And they have a great deal, like I said, on their website. I've been to eBay and you name it, in clearance warehouse sales, blowouts, whatever, Cyber Monday specials, and Canon has the best price.
So I have good thoughts for Canon.
Yes, professional photographers really rely on them, and they are a reliable company. They also have kind of a brand, much like Apple. They have a certain brand. There's a certain style to the Rebel. The Rebel has a certain look, and all of their products are kind of similar in their style. I don't know how to explain it. They're kind of snazzy looking.
Well, Lynn had a problem with Canon's back in the when she was in school, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and so she was much more able to use the Nikon cameras effectively. So that's what all our lenses are Nikons from those days.
Yeah. That's a well-respected brand also.
Well, Nikon still makes great cameras. They have one of the best of the new 4Ks, because there are two, well maybe three, but mainly two models that are the prosumer brand. And when I say that, I mean prosumer, I guess it's a common parlance.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah, it's like you're a professional, but you're not backed by a huge movie studio in Hollywood, so you're not looking to go overboard.
Right.
You're not using other people's money, which is why you go overboard. Right? You're not Orson Welles. But at the same time, it's like Nikon is one of those and they have a really nice camera. It's not, the sensors are not as big as they are on the Canons. That's the thing. So you got to decide whether you want to go for resolution or image quality. And some people are going to go for resolution because it's just cool, and it's cutting edge. And maybe I can see where maybe nature photographers and videographers, filmmakers would like that, especially with the FC80 B700, because they both have amazing zoom lenses that are really well made. Basically, if you go with the Canon, especially the latest Canons, you're going to get much better low light shooting. You're going to be able to film people in very low light, where with the Panasonic and the Nikon, you're probably going to need light. It'll get to a certain point in the evening, after sunset, where you'll start to get pixely. Your images will get pixely, and that's just because if you can't open up the shutter enough to let the light in, then you're just not going to get as good a quality of photograph. So I don't know. I mean, there are people who swear by Canon, and they're not shooting in 4K, and they don't apparently give a crap about 4K. It's not even a consideration. But the Panasonic, I believe, or the Nikon, one of the two, they actually offer 4K photographs too. So they're super, super high resolution photographs. So for professional photographers, that's probably great. Because like John said, you can crop way into your photograph and not lose any kind of definition. So you have a much bigger palette to work with. But you don't have to spend any more right now. If you look really deeply into the sales that are going on, mostly at certain camera stores and Amazon and eBay, you can get a really great 1080p large sensor Canon camera, or a really nice, I would say professional 4K point and shoot for $400 or less if you're smart. If you really wait for that great
Mark,
price.
what is a 4K camera? What do you mean by 4K?
Well, it's just going
I
to.
haven't kept up.
Well, 1080p is 1080 lines across horizontally, where 4K is 3,800. So it's not actually 4K. That's a misnomer. It's a roundup. But that's fine. So much more lines. Like the old TVs, the old CRTs had maybe like 200 lines or something. That's why you could literally see the lines across the TV, especially if you had a really big screen. But these are just super high definition cameras. It's 4 times the resolution of a 1080p file. But like I said, you're not going to be able to tell the difference unless you're looking at it on a 40-50 inch screen.
Large screen.
Yeah, because on your phone.
Well, the big question that you haven't raised is who's watching this? Who's the audience?
Now there's a great.
And that's what
thing.
really drives it.
Right.
From a business point of view, in terms of production, you're not going to bother with any of those formats if you don't have an audience to viewers.
Well, honestly, though, Dean, it's like this. There are some companies, and some of them are news organizations, not many, who do have a lot of money to play with. They have big budgets. They have millions of dollars to play with, so they can afford to throw money at 4K, not really getting an immediate payoff. So I'm talking about the MSNBCs, the Fox News networks, those kind of people. They can do it, and they are experimenting right now. There's also a lot of discussion going on with the FCC because, like I said, in order for some of these networks to go 4K, they're going to have to revamp a lot of their network and put in a lot of new equipment. But the truth is that
until they have an audience sufficient size with large enough screens, they're not going to do it.
Well, some of them.
You run into that with internet companies also. They're not going to upgrade the local office.
But Dean, here's the thing. Sometimes though,
until they have to, because the technology keeps changing and improving, and at some point, it's only for a limited time. And so, when are you going to do your upgrades and where? And it's a calculated business decision that you have to do it in some places, but you don't want to overinvest during the same time frame because it's a regular rolling set of improvements, and you have to plan for that also. It's very complicated.
Yes,
on the business side.
but some folks they pride themselves, and part of their branding is to be those innovators and be the first ones to do this new technology. So in their eyes, that is like a marketing plus for them. So people on YouTube who are using 4K to shoot their video blogs or whatever are getting more attention from YouTube, I have to admit, because they are using 4K, and that's considered cutting edge, and that means that you're really getting professional and you're really, you know, pushing the edge on your videos. And then of course you're going to have a screen that can handle 4K. I'm not saying that you can't tell the difference on YouTube between a 4K and a 1080p, but it's such a small difference that it doesn't really matter. And also, even on a larger screen, it doesn't really matter too much. There are some really good examples, like, I don't know, this is from the photographer at Glazers I talked to, but he said, check out Dope Magazine's YouTube's channel, because one of their videographers and photographers lives here in Seattle, and they look super professional. They have a lot of super professional graphics and video editing that they do on that program, and everything is super sharp and well lit and bright, brilliant colors, and they shoot everything in 1080p. And there's no way that you would be able to tell, probably, if they were shooting in 4K, unless you had a 4K screen. So that's one good guideline. We're not there yet, but I can tell you that most of the Black Friday sales this year were on 4K screens. So thousands, if not millions, of new people now have 4K screens. And they still weren't cheap, but they certainly weren't the $5,000 they were like 2 or 3 years ago. So it is becoming the consumer market. Now you got a lot of people out there that went to Target and all these places, and they got their 4K screen, their doorbuster specials, they got their 4K screens, and they're on it, and there's really not much material to watch. But it'll get there sooner or later, In other words, they're cool. They're the coolest on the block because they got the 4K screen, but there's not much to watch yet. So it was like the first person with the Blu-ray, but how many movies are out on Blu-ray? And by the way, Blu-ray, which was really super exciting, highest resolution ever, was 1080p. And at some point, our eyes are not going to be able to tell the difference. And we're getting very close to that, because when you have...
Your eye could discern a 10,000th of an inch. That's its upper limit.
Well, people are talking about 8K now. I don't know. Every time you step it up 4 times resolution, you're probably going to see a slight improvement somehow, but very slight. And if you don't... and if you're...
Yeah, on a small screen, you'll get the smaller the screen... the better the resolution, and also it means you can have larger screens. So you're talking about really high resolution cinema on a full-size screen.
Yeah, if you want to put it on, an electronic screen on Times Square on Broadway, and you want it to be 4 stories tall, use 8K. It'll look great. But on my smartphone, 720p.
Yeah, well, it's away.
720p.
It's overkill.
720p, which was the standard how many years ago? Looks really professional.
Oh, I remember when it was 132.
Well, 144 was the first resolution that YouTube supported. It went 144 and then 2.
I'm talking about straight images, just still images. 130 web content, HTML4. They were recommending 132.
So everything looked like Minecraft. The whole world looked like Minecraft. It was all pixels, right? Big ones, big blocky ones like Legos. Everybody looked like Legos.
The screens were smaller. 13-inch was large.
And people were using their Commodore 80s, right, to play games. No, but I'm saying that 720p on my smartphone looks super high resolution professional, and it's like so. I can get a 720. There is right now a 720p camera. I believe it is a Nikon, and it's over at I think it is a Nikon, and it's over at the Goodwill, and it shoots at 720p, which was the high standard back in not that long ago, but you know what I'm saying, like the high and Canon video cameras that all the professional videographers were making documentaries with, shot at 720p, and it was considered really high resolution. Well, that looks great on a smartphone. It looks just super professional. So it just depends on what you're shooting for. And also, if you let the technology restrain you from your creative or journalistic intuition, then you're going to hinder yourself. It'd be better that you shoot in a lower resolution if you're going to get better images, if you're going to get better shots, if you're going to get more creative coverage. Because having a huge camera with a huge telephoto lens is not only really intrusive to other people who may not want to talk to you on camera so much once you shove that in their face, or, you know, you might just find that it's heavy and you can't really carry it very easily, and you get tired and then you just give up and go have coffee somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's all about what you get in the frame, not what you're using, and it doesn't matter. I'm thinking with the Nick Savage Private Eye film noir kind of series thing that I'm doing, that it might be better to shoot it in a lower resolution because it'll look older.
This is Mark Taylor-Canfield for Democracy Watch News for the Democracycast podcast for today on what camera should you buy if you want to be a journalist. I want to thank you for listening, and please support us at Twitter and Facebook, and also you can find the Democracycast podcast on Libsyn and iTunes, so it's pretty easy to find there for free. I want to thank you for joining us today, and please support independent media. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield in Seattle for Democracy Watch News.